My name is Kelly. I am a medical toxicology doctor. I work at Poison Control. And recently, my boss asked me to go by myself overseas to the United Arab Emirates, to Abu Dhabi and Dubai, to basically help introduce poison control services to the UAE population. So I went by myself. I was really terrified initially. I've got a husband, I have two kids. I have not left the country since before my kids were born, and my kids are now 10 and 12. So it's been over a decade since I've left the US. I had not been on an airplane since right before COVID hit in 2020. So I was terrified of traveling outside of the US by myself to a foreign country where I'd never been before. I remember when we were doing the trip planning, I had to figure out like what could I take? I had to buy a new suitcase. I had to figure out what kind of electrical outlet would work there. I realized I couldn't take my hair dryer or my curling iron or anything like that because the electrical outlets in the US don't necessarily match up with those overseas. I had to figure out like what kind of money is used over there, and I had to order money from my bank and learn how to do that. So I had to go through all of these things, and I was also really worried about my husband and kids. I normally take my kids to school every day. I pick them up, and now my husband would have to do that by himself for an entire week. So all of these things were completely terrifying me about this trip overseas. About an hour before I left for the airport, I got an email from the airline saying that I got upgraded to business class. This particular airline lets you bid for an upgrade. So I bid like $900, never thought I would get it, but I got it. So that made me a little bit more relaxed. And when I got on the airplane, I think I must have looked terrified. And the flight attendant was so nice. He brought me a little drink, made sure I was okay, took a picture of me in my seat looking happy. And he made sure I was comfortable the whole way over there. It was a 12-hour flight there and 15 hours back. So it's a long flight. When I got off the plane, I didn't know what to expect. When I left the airport, I was supposed to have a car to take me to my hotel. The car was not there. But I saw a couple guys in front of me, and they were looking for an Uber, and they were asking for help getting an Uber. And so I learned that there's Ubers in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. So I just caught an Uber to my hotel, and that was that. The next day I took a day before the meetings that I had scheduled to do some traveling. And so the next day I woke up early. I took a day trip to Dubai. I found a company that would do a private tour for me by myself. It was a little hard to find, but I was able to find one. So they took me all around Dubai. We went to the Dubai Mall. We saw the Dubai Frame. We saw a lot of great architecture. We went to the spice souks and the gold souks, and I saw a lot of great stuff. And I realized that day, there are some advantages traveling by yourself. Even though I loved my husband and my kids, on this particular trip, I was able to do what I wanted to do. Usually we spend so much time taking care of our families as women. And on this trip, I got to just focus on myself and do the things that I wanted to do and see the things that I wanted to see on my own time. So UAE is 90% expats. So you'll see people wearing all sorts of crazy things over there. But in the mosques, you did have to cover up your head. So I had bought some hijabs as part of my trip planning. I'd ordered them right around Christmas time. So I took those with me, and so I wore those. But, there were some people at the mosque who just had like a hoodie on covering up their heads. So, who knows? But yeah, you did have to cover up your head in the mosque, but only there. And you actually had to, they would dress code you, like you had to have loose clothes on, and they send you like a little email, and you have to register before you go over to the mosque, and then they basically like tell you what you have to wear. And so like you can't wear anything tight, like guys can't wear like tight t-shirts or shorts or anything like that, and the women have to wear loose clothes and be covered up. One of the best parts of the trip for me was waking up at 4:30 in the morning to drive out to the desert, again with a private tour guide, to see the sunrise. And I had picked this particular tour because it was recommended to me by my tour guide in Dubai. And I picked it also because I didn't think that it would involve riding a 4x4 across sand dunes. I'm kind of motion sick, and I didn't want to, encounter those sort of things. I just wanted to see the sunrise. So we had a great time. We drove out to the middle of the desert. I saw the sunrise. My guide took some great pictures of me. I got to ride a camel. I got to pet some camels. I saw a 2-day-old baby camel. And those are things that I will never forget. But what really stood out to me is on the way to the desert, my driver stopped to pray because the Muslims pray multiple times a day. And so you can stop at like gas stations, and they have prayer buildings there. So he stopped at this gas station on the outskirts of Abu Dhabi, and and told me that he was going to pray, and he left me in the car with the engine running, with the car doors open. I was terrified. I live in an urban area. I thought that I was going to get kidnapped or carjacked or, robbed or murdered and left out in the desert to die. And I realized there were all these guys walking around, and I was just like, oh my goodness, what is going to happen to me? Then I realized all the guys were going to pray in the prayer building. And I realized that it was very safe there because, it was a very safe country. There's very little crime, and it's very different than the US. There's like no drugs over there. There's no crime. Like the guides all made a point to tell me how safe it was. And I was like, oh yeah, whatever. But it was. I mean, it's very clean there, very safe. And, we think that we're so special here in the US, but we're really not. Like, that's why people look down on us because, we have alcohol, we have drugs, we have crime, we have rape, like other countries don't necessarily have all of that.
Welcome to the Feisty News for Women.